When the word stress comes up, what are we thinking? Some things that pop into your mind might include your morning commute, worried about running late for an important meeting or appointment, for class, or maybe for the 3MT competition. Other things might include the upcoming deadlines that we have and how they're approaching just a little bit too quick. Now, what do these things have in common? Well, if you're like the participants in my study, you likely associate the effects of stress to be bad. In my research, I examined how our expectations of stress might influence the outcomes of stress. In particular, whether we can change or shape these expectations to influence different outcomes of stress. As it turns out, our expectations of stress can say a lot about how we're going to respond to it, but maybe not in the way that we might think. We might think that positivity invites more positivity, or maybe thinking about stress negatively prepares us and motivates us to cope even better or cope harder. Turns out that was not the case. Instead, my findings look more like the inverse U-shaped graph behind me. So on one hand, if I frame stress as positive, participants expect stress to be positive. And these expectations were violated the second they faced a stressor. They were not prepared and therefore they cope very badly. On the other hand, if I continue to let participants think that stress is bad, what ends up happening is that they were not motivated to cope at all. So therefore they also cope badly. However, if I present both positive and negative information on stress, participants were more informed about the expectations of stress overall, and as a result, they were more motivated to cope with stress and they felt more in control of their stressful responses. And their bodies showed this. So they recovered faster and they went back down to their baseline quicker than compared to all the other groups. And this is a hallmark of an efficient and adaptive stress response. So what does this mean? Well, it means that we need to better educate others on stress instead of just telling everyone to avoid it. Now, the everyday stressors that we actually encounter activate the same systems in our body. But it's the meaning that we assign to it that ultimately dictate the outcomes of stress. Stress is unavoidable, just like traffic during rush hour. However, how we interpret that stress determines whether we are surviving or whether we are thriving. Thank you.